Yes, hello, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Amaya Fazil. Uh, the developments that are coming from Uganda is that the extrajudicial killings have now started. We do understand that Muslims are being profiled and they are also being targeted. According to reports, over 70 people have been so far arrested, and numerous people have so far been extrajudicially killed. Now, the targets, as anticipated, they are all Muslims, and the insignia of these extrajudicial killings is they put you on handcuffs and then they shoot you. The most recent of the cases of these shootings is that one sheikh known as Sheikh Chirevu was actually murdered in front of his family. And witnessing the death of his father was a 10-year-old child, almost 10-year-old child. And he's the one that gave us the account of what happened to his father, contrary to what the police was alleging. Of course, Museveni has come out to justify these killings and all this kind of stuff. You see, in Uganda, things are funny. It's that you're always guilty before you're innocent. Like, what happens is that you're guilty and then they start investigations. Okay? So why target Muslims? And what do we learn from all this? What is happening actually? Making sense of these killings. Why do you go about killing everyone? Are you covering your tracks? Are you hiding something? What is happening? I really thought that if you capture someone who is alleged to be a terrorist, you would like this person to either, number one, turn him against his fellow terrorists, number two, give you information and all this kind of stuff, and then number three, I think if you had him with you, it would be much beneficial rather than executing these people. As we speak today, 12 people have so far been murdered in these circumstances in such ways in 4 months. That's ever since the attempted assassination of General Katumba Wamala. Now, the first suspect that was murdered, a gentleman known as Mose, the police went, arrested him, then alleged that he tried to run off the police pickup. So they disabled him, shot him in the leg, and then afterwards, after giving them some vital information, the guy died. Died of what? Of the wound that they inflicted on him by shooting him. So literally they meant that, okay, they shot him, then afterwards they're like, hey man, you're dying, give us information. Then the guy is like, oh yeah, I know where the second bomb is, but I'm dying, please help. No, you're going to die. Tell us where the bomb is. The bomb is at my home. So and so is also a terrorist. So and so is a terrorist. Then after giving them that vital information, the gentleman died. So they went to his home and then they detonated the bomb. Now all this, we are hearsay. We didn't see the bomb they detonated. We only heard a bang sound like boom. But we did see the bomb. Number three, the gentleman was not showed to the world, but he was called Mose, which is said that Mose exists, which is good, but we didn't see any of this. Because you would think that this would be evidence. Like they would show you the pictures, they would show you the bomb he had. They have been showing all the bombs, but when they start gunning down people, they don't show the bombs. Reason being, number one, they are covering tracks. This is called cleaning house. That's why I tell people, be very careful when you're dealing with Museveni. Museveni is very violent with anyone who deals with him, or anyone who is in his line or his path that brings in money to him. So Mose was killed just like that. And afterwards, the other murder that has actually shocked the nation is the murder of Sheikh Chilev. Sheikh Chilev is a very young man and a renowned member in the community. They went to his house, took him out, put him on handcuffs, moved a few steps outside the house, shot him dead on spot in front of his children. The police came out with a narrative that he was trying to run. The kid says, no, my father was not running. They took him out. Okay, you can do anything, but man, why would you shoot someone in front of their children? How heartless is that? What? I mean, these people are even worse than terrorists. Literally, this is terrorism in its own right. Because look here, before you even come with me with that crap that, okay, this gentleman was also a terrorist, you prove the case that he was a terrorist. Because you did give him his day in court, you had that chance to get him before a judge and to argue out his case. You silenced him in front of his wife and children. So we have to say that you are worse than terrorist. You know that saying that you would rather let 100 people free than convicting or than killing one innocent person. How do you turn back on that? Here is an innocent individual shot and murdered, right? And you don't even have any evidence that he was involved in the things you allege that he was involved in. And you're there coming out with your stupid words, oh, put out of action. And then you see the international media reporting, oh, Uganda has killed 5 ADF terrorists. Which is really funny that these so-called journalists, and now these international mediums are also very funny. They don't really go down to follow up on the story. Okay, the gentleman who was killed, what do the people of Uganda say? They won't. Sheikh Chirevo has been killed like any other Muslims have been killed. This is the entire signature of the assassinations and murders that have been happening. Who has been murdering people using guns? Who has been murdering Muslim sheikhs? We now know. Who has been murdering police officers? We now know. Because this is the same style of murder that these people use. Who tried to murder Katumba Wamala? We now know. Because this is the same style of killings that you use. You never recovered guns. You said that you recovered bombs and all of that kind of stuff. Where are the guns that you recovered from Sheikh Chirevo's residence? No gun. There is not even bomb-making equipment. Nothing. Nothing that could be used to make a bomb. You know what they came up with? Oh, Sheikh Chirevo was given amnesty. He violated his amnesty. He was working for ADF once again. That is a scapegoat. You're using Sheikh Chirevo as a patsy. You know what a patsy is? You get to blame someone else for your crimes. Let me tell you, if these people had evidence, they would be throwing it all over the internet. They don't have evidence. The same thing happened when they are murdering these sheikhs. Blaming them, oh, this was ADF has become ADF, ISIS has become ISIS, terrorism has become terrorism. Everyone now is going to be killed. Now remember, there was ADF, the real ADF was there, led by Jamil Mukuru. And these people were actually given amnesty. And then they were reintegrated into the community. People like Sheikh, what's his name? Major Chigun. Those people were from the ADF. Like other rebel organizations, like you see the Moses Sari, oh, these people were rebels. Now, what happened was, all of these people now, Museveni brought them, you know, that saying, keep your enemies close and your enemies closer. They serve two purposes. Number one, they serve as scapegoats, and they can also serve as victims in those two capacities. Because the bigger picture here is that what is, you know, in the 60s and 70s, from ever since the Second World War ended up to 1990 with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the biggest thing someone would allege you are and would get you killed is being a commie or being a Marxist or being a communist. They say, oh, that one guy is a communist. Oh my, they will come for you like they are coming for Muslims these days. So now, terrorism is synonymous with Islam. You get it? So now, given that these ADF guys, the ones who were there initially in the 90s, were Muslims, Museveni brought them closer. But he uses them as victims. How? he gets them killed. And after killing them, he then says, oh, ADF murdered you. And then, when ADF murdered you, they come for the people within these people that were given amnesty, and they gun more down. Why? We know these tricks. We know the game. And you can see all this happening. Now, they have this excuse. Oh, it was a mistake. Let me tell you one thing. A mistake that is repeated more than once, it becomes a choice. Or it becomes a decision. A mistake repeated more than once, it's a decision. This is a choice that these people have taken, that when you find Muslims, halas, just execute. And then we can, look at the things later, because that is the plan. For those of you who have followed the investigations into the JFK assassination in 1963, the 22nd of November, one of the biggest assassinations in human history, even up to today, they have never cracked it. First, they blamed Lee Harvey Oswald. Second, Lee Harvey Oswald, the person who assassinated JFK, gets killed by a gentleman known as Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby dies in 1967 because of pneumonia complications. And now, what we know today, why JFK was killed, there is something known as Operation Northwood, a plan by the US government where they wanted to carry out violent attacks within America and then blame it on the communists as well as Fidel Castro. Because the American CIA as well as the FBI, they wanted America to go to war with Castro because he was a communist. And because he was giving, remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, because he was giving the commies, he was giving the Russians the best to station their missiles. You remember the disaster, because JF Kennedy never wanted to, he never wanted to invade Cuba. And even the Bay of Pigs disaster that happened, JFK, he refused to give air support to these Cuban exiles that had gone back to remove Castro, that was, orchestrated by the CIA. Now, in Operation Northwood, the CIA came up with a plan that they would do violent attacks in order to justify their intervention, in order to justify their invasion of Cuba as well as the communists. It is Museveni's plan. Well, let me tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to understand Museveni, how he works, look at American intervention policies. Look at American imperialist foreign policy and all that kind of stuff. I've come to realize that Museveni has studied how America does their stuff, and he is replicating the same thing within the Great Lakes region. And that's why when you come in the Great Lakes region, Museveni is one of the biggest people who has been destabilizing the entire region, invading this one, having problems with everyone. That's what is happening. That's why you see, like, he made over 6 trips when he in 1988. And then he got connections with the son-in-law of Ronald Reagan, and started to make those connections. And then he got those lobbying firms, and they told him, hey, communism has fallen. Now it is terrorism that is working. He's like, what? Terrorism? Yes. Get ready. So Museveni stationed himself. That is why you see Uganda is the country now as apparently that is having a problem with terrorists. There are no terrorists in Tanzania, as the case is with Uganda today. Of course, Kenya had a bit of it a few years ago, but it's not a big thing today, in Mombasa especially. And you would see that the grievances of the people in Mombasa, the terrorists, whatever, the ones they labeled as terrorists in Mombasa, these people had their grievances. You get it? Like the ADF initially had their grievances. But now, it has now become a political chip that Museveni is playing to, intervene in the Congo using American. That's why you see in his speeches he quotes so much of the American way of life. He quotes so much of these American presidents, the Constitution. He knows everything American. He's aware of what Americans do in interventions of Iraq and all these other places. And when I read about Operation Northwoods and I read about JFK Nixon, and in fact Lee Harvey Oswald said, I'm a patsy. I'm not the one who assassinated the president. I didn't do it. Someone else did it and they are blaming me. So it's what Museveni is doing today. Now they are blaming ADF, Muslims as well as terrorists. I'll add on this point. You remember Colonel Muammar Gaddafi? Gaddafi had really played a very big role in helping out the Muslim community, by the way, because Gaddafi had put a lot of money in the Ugandan economy. He had built the palace of the King of Toro. Above all, he built the biggest mosque in Africa. That is the Gaddafi International Mosque at Old Kampala. Museveni is so bad that when Gaddafi was taken out of power and killed, he ordered the people at Old Kampala to take Gaddafi's name off the mosque that Gaddafi built with his own money, and told those people to leave the word only National Mosque. I think soon they will even call it Museveni National Mosque. But what Gaddafi had done was this, that Muslims had a wee bit of a breathing space. Because Gaddafi would always put money in the economy, and Museveni never wanted to be looked at as a person who is, whereas these things were there, but they were not at the extent at which they are. Museveni never wanted to be looked at. He never wanted Gaddafi to look at him as someone who would, who was oppressing Muslims, who was using Muslims as scapegoats and things like that. He would do those things, but still tactfully, not in the open, not being an Islamophobe in the open. But now everything is in the open, because what is selling is they are trying to squeeze the last juice out of terrorism. And also using terrorism in order to, by the time terrorism is no longer selling, I don't know what is coming up next, it might be China, he will already be in the Congo. And maybe we might have some breathing space as Muslims, but the people in the Congo will feel the heat. So Gaddafi's death escalated the hate on Muslims that Museveni has had. And also you should understand, I will teach about another massacre that happened to Muslims in the 70s, late 70s, there after the late 70s, after the overthrow of Idi Amin, the massacres in Mbarara, where Museveni ordered the people that, hey, we have cut the branches, now it is time for you to cut the roots, meaning that it was time to massacre the Muslims. One of the biggest genocides that has ever happened in the country, and no one mentions about it on the orders of Museveni. So we know all these things. It is so sad that we have lost our brothers and sisters in such ways, but we know, for us who believe in God, we shall always go back to pray to Him. And we know these are kind of tests that these people think they are big. Museveni thinks he's a very big guy. He thinks that he's very all-powerful. But at the end of the day, we are all nothing at the end of the day. You might think you're very powerful, you might think you have everything, you might think you can do as you please, but you'll be humbled by the humbler. So, to the families that lost their loved ones to these extrajudicial killings, take heart. And to the media that are reporting these things as facts, the same way you are reporting these things, if stuff happens to you, well, we also know how to report on those circumstances. Because for a murderer and a person who is doing things that no one would actually approve of, for you to report that as fact, that terrorists have been killed, yet these people have not been given even a day in court, shame on you. Shame on you all. You, the Musevenis, and everyone who is engaged in this campaign to invade the DRC. Thank you very much for listening. Let us meet again.